right, here we go. So, hello everyone. This is our first family podcast. I'll start it off with our dad
Rick Morales.
Josh.
Nicole.
and myself, Elijah Morales. So, I wanted to bring all of us together for this podcast. Just we always have good family conversations at the dinner table, and I just think we have like a lot of cool and interesting stories that we would like to share with the world and. Hopefully, y'all like us, and if y'all don't, that's completely fine. But for those of you who don't know, Josh is our oldest brother. He's the oldest of four. Then it's my sister, Nicole. Then we have another brother, Isaiah. He's not here with us, but he is definitely special. He has Down syndrome. And then I'm the baby, when I'm also the favorite. Sorry, you guys. But I just wanted to bring us together. We did grow up around politics and a lot and around business. And I believe that my dad has a great personality and he has a lot of great and creative ways of thinking. And hopefully you all can learn a little bit something from us, just like we could learn something from you all. So I guess to start it off, I would like my dad to kind of give us a little background of how he grew up, where he grew up, and then we'll just see where the conversation leads from there.
All right. Well, I grew up in Harlingen, the youngest of five kids, to great parents, super brothers, the best sister in the world. And so I tell everybody, she's my favorite sister. And she says, I'm your only sister. I said, I know. That's why she's my favorite sister. She's excellent. Grew up, had a super great childhood. Super, just awesome childhood. We grew up, we didn't have any money. We didn't have a car till I think I was in the fourth or fifth grade, something like that. And our first car was a Rambler. And before that, we used to walk everywhere. We used to walk to go get our shots. We used to walk clear, like maybe 2.5, 3 miles to go to the mall. We used to go to Woolco and J.C. Penney to go get our, once a year, we'd get, they call them plain pocket blue jeans because we couldn't afford the fancy stuff, the Levi's. And we'd walk over there and we'd get our pants. And then we would go across from the mall. There was a grocery store called Kroger. And then we would cross 77 and Morgan Boulevard. And we would go to a place called Gibson's. And we would get our tennis shoes with it there. I think they were like maybe $1.50, $2 for a pair of tennies. And I get one, and Arthur would get one. Everybody get a pair.
Growing up, how much money did your dad make? Or did grandma work as well, or no?
Grandma was a stay-at-home mom, and Grandpa used to make $100 a week.
Hey.
And so I remember one time, it was a Saturday, he had gotten a paycheck, and he had five $20 bills. And I thought we were rich. I'd never seen so much money in my life. I was like, wow. $100. And of course, being a kid, a child, I didn't know that $100 for a family of seven was really not a whole lot of money. Mm-hmm. But for me, that was, just everything. It's like, wow, this is amazing. And I remember Dad, on weekends, we used to go mow grass, all the yards, and he'd have his little lawnmower, and we had just the tools of the trade, a rake and some. We didn't have a weed eater back then, so we had a gas one that had a blade, mm-hmm. and he would have some scissors to go in and trim the hedges and trim the edges also. And we had this little, we call it a lona, and you would put everything on there, then you get one end, and then we take it out.
Like a wagon?
Yeah, like a wagon without wheels, yeah.
How much did he charge?
$5.
$5 to cut grass?
$5 a yard.
Wow.
Yeah. And he would give Arthur and I a quarter. At least that's what I remember. A quarter. And our job was to walk the grass, the whole yard, and look through the grass and make sure there was nothing that could hurt the blade. For two reasons. One, you damage the lawnmower. One. And two, it had a chute where the grass would go out. And if there was something there and they chopped it up, it would it'd fly out, and somebody was on the other end, you would be catching it, not in a good way either. And so that was our job. And then we would rake And our father taught us how to mow grass properly. You probably see today that people, they mow the grass and all the grass, the blades are in the street. And he says, you never do that. He says, that's being dirty. And he told us how to properly mow. You first 2 or 3 cuts, you cut inside, not out. And then as you go around cutting, then you can put it all together, and it's easier to rake. And you cut your time, and you're a lot cleaner.
Growing up, were you like pretty good in school?
I was.
How about we like fast forward to like high school
Well,
or middle school, high school?
I was, I love baseball. And I remember, I think we needed like $3 or $4 to go, and so we can sign up for the baseball league. And it was just 2 brothers, Arthur and I, my dad didn't have enough money for everybody. Because now you're talking about 10% of his one check would go, and we just couldn't do it. So I remember Coach Garcia, a lady who, she said, I'll pay it. And I told her, I will pay you back. And we used to collect bottles and aluminum cans. And that, I remember that. Nobody had, very few of us had gloves. So we would have to share gloves. And Dad one time got some old gloves that some people had thrown out. And for Arthur and I, we were like, oh, my God, we had gloves. The thing was falling apart and everything, but those were our gloves.
I was going to say, what years, like, can you let everyone know what years
that was
you grew up?
I was in the 3rd grade. When that
what year, Dad? Let's see, you were born.
I was born in 67,
67.
so this was probably 74, 75.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it like at that time? Like,
Growing up in the
was there
30s.
AC in the school?
There was no AC
Was there
in school.
AC? Like, what
We had
was
no
it
AC.
like? Like, what was a day in your life like at that time?
We didn't know any better. We didn't have air conditioning in our school. The neutral part had air conditioning that kind of worked, but the majority of the school where we were at, we didn't have AC. We had these big windows, and we used to have a black fan on the wall, and it would kind of oscillate back and forth. And it was like 110 degrees outside, and inside was like 109 because of the little fan.
Yeah.
But for us, hey, we were in school, we were learning, and that's just the way we all grew up. We didn't know any better.
So you claim that, were you going to say something, Josh?
I know that you mentioned when you were in middle school, you guys got to leave campus for lunch.
Yes, we used to, at Coakley Junior High in Harlingen, we used to leave campus for lunch.
Oh.
And
With your quarter? What did you do with your quarter?
by that time, Arthur and I, we had a little routine on the weekends. We would go and we would collect aluminum cans, and we collect bottles. And as Frank and Abel were getting older, they would mow the grass, and sometimes they didn't want to go mow the grass. So Arthur and I, we'd go and, hey, let's go mow grass.
hustle. Yeah.
$5, $2.50 a piece. We're talk cotton, man, like they say. We're doing really well. But most of the time we would just collect cans and aluminum cans, and we would collect bottles. We had the store behind where Grandpa and Grandma lived, and it was called Keener's, and we used to take the bottles, and I think it was like a nickel or a dime for each bottle. So, man, we would scour trash cans, everything, everywhere to go get bottles. And aluminum cans, we collect them, and then like once a month, we would go to the Rialto Theater in downtown Harlingen. And
How much was a movie ticket?
it was $1 for 2 movies.
Wow. What about the snacks?
They were, we would buy 1 Coke with 1 box of popcorn that was $1.
Wow.
Yeah. So we would split that. Arthur and I, and the key at that time was very little ice, because when it comes out of the tap, the machine, it was cold. So ice takes up a lot of cubic space in a
space in the
cup.
cup.
So we wanted more Coke, so we wouldn't put a lot of ice in it, very little ice. And then we would split the popcorn. we'd be like, okay, you get one handful, I get one handful. And I used to tell Arthur, hey, your hand's bigger. So,
Right.
but we had a great time. A great time.
Yeah.
It was so much fun being a kid at that time. We would walk from our house to the theater, and we'd get there like at noon, and we'd leave, like at 5:30. And we were like, man.
What was like the biggest movie or the scariest movie that you saw, or like the most packed movie?
The biggest movie that we saw it was Bruce Lee movies. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was. I mean, they'd always get packed. Bruce Lee was, he was the
King of martial arts.
Yeah, the king of martial arts, and Enter the Dragon, and Fist of Fury, and I mean, I could Game of Death. A bunch of movies that I've probably seen 100 times, and it was awesome, going out there, spending time with, not just my brother, but all the kids from around the neighborhood, and
How was it seeing Jaws?
Jaws was at the big theater, what we call it the Gringo Theater. Mm-hmm. That was out where we saw it was over at the cinema, the Twin Cinema over on Morgan Boulevard. And that came out in 76, 77. Mm-hmm. And we went with Frank. And I remember it was Frank, Abel, Frankie, Arthur, and I. And we walked over there. At least I remember we walked over there. And we went to saw Jaws. And everybody was like, oh, my God. And it was packed on the inside. And it was packed on the outside.
Wow.
And so we were, we're just kids, 8, 9, 10-year-old kids. Just a little bit older than Emery.
Did that movie come out in the summer?
Yeah. I don't remember if it was the summer. It had to be the summer.
Was South Padre Island packed that summer? Right.
We couldn't afford to go to the island because we didn't have a vehicle. And for us, going to the island, that was like, that's for the rich people. We could not afford to go.
So I know before, during our many like family talks and stuff, you would always mention that how good you were at math. Did you ever think math could take you to where you are now?
I've always liked math. That was my subject, still is. I love numbers, love them. I always knew I wanted to do something with math. When I was in high school, I wanted to be in the Army. I wanted to be an Army Ranger. That was my goal. That was like, man, if I could just do that. And I wanted to go there because I wanted to get money to go to college because I wanted to be an accountant because of math. Mm-hmm. And I remember being in high school and my counselor, it was my junior year. It was my sophomore year, and they were trying to put us like a career path or something. And I remember she asked me, well, what does your father do? And I said, well, he works at a lumber yard. He says, well, maybe you ought to do things like your father and not consider going to college. And I said, why? She said, well, that way you can work like, maybe you can build cabinets or something to do with wood so you can be with your father. And I remember telling her, but I really want to go to college. My brother's in college. And she was shocked. Your brother's in college? I said, yeah. And my sister, they go to A&I in Kingsville. She's like, oh, wow. And my brother was in the Navy at the time, Uncle Abel. And I never understood why she would discourage me from going to college. I never understood that. I understand now. Yeah. But, you're just a kid. I was a 15-year-old kid at the time. And I really wanted to go to college. I wanted to go to college because I wanted to be an accountant. But first, I had to go to the Army because we couldn't afford college. And I wanted to go to the Army, I think it was, you had to put in 4 years, and they give you like $5,000 a year. And then I had done my math calculations, and man, $20,000, I can go to college and I can become a CPA. Well, I didn't know what a CPA was. I just wanted to be an accountant. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was going to say, so let's fast forward a little bit past high school. You met our mom, right? You fell in love, mm-hmm. and you all had Josh.
We got married at 17, and he was born August 22nd, My birthday was August 8th. I had just turned 18. 2 weeks later, I was a dad.
Wow.
How much are oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, what was it like being a teen dad, or like?
Back in the 80s.
Yeah.
You know, it was, you need to understand, I had this drive that I still have. Nothing was hard for me. You know, people were like, oh my God, I didn't see anything hard. It's just, you just got to deal with it. You know, now I'm married. Your mom had one more year of high school. She was in high school. And I was working. I had 4 jobs. I was literally working like 20 hours a day. And I was fine. I had no problem.
What were some of those jobs?
I used to work at HEB. I worked at 7-Eleven. I was a bill collector. I sold refrigerators at Osmond's Appliances. I was a dishwasher and a busboy, and I sold insurance.
How did you even get into half of that stuff?
Yeah.
Right?
You know, that is a good question, and I don't know.
Would you just look in the newspaper for jobs, or was it like friends that you knew?
No,
or families that were hiring. Like, how did you?
I was at HEB because I was in a program in the high school called DECA, and I forgot what it stands for, DECA, DECA, and from there I was working at 7-Eleven, and I was working at HEB, and I would go to school from 8 till 12. And then at 1, I would go work one day either at 7-Eleven or the next day I'd go to HEB. And I was working 2 jobs, and everybody was like, why are you working so much? Nobody knew I was going to be a dad, you know. And I couldn't go to anybody to ask for money to borrow so I could pay for the pregnancy. And I didn't want anybody to pay for the pregnancy. It was my responsibility. And so I worked.
How much were diapers or...
Diapers, I don't know, it's like maybe $5, $4
A box.
a box.
Bring
Wow.
it back to
Was
those
baby
times.
Formula?
formula even a thing back then?
Yeah, baby formula was a thing. And there was a Similac and Infamil. Those were the only 2 milks at the time. And of course, when you were a baby, Josh, I would have to buy a special kind of Similac because you were very colicky, and that was like $2 for like 20 ounces or something, and you would drink like, I don't know, like 2 a day or something. So
Golly.
Man.
yeah.
So
You're
you
a hungry
were
guy.
so you were a senior in high school when mom got pregnant. Mom
Yeah.
was a junior in high school when she got pregnant.
Yes.
And then she had Josh in August, so you had already graduated high school.
Just graduated.
Mom was about to start her senior year in high school.
Yeah.
I graduated on one Saturday. The next Saturday, we're getting married.
Man.
Oh wow.
Oh, that's right. Y'all got married June 1st,
Yeah,
right?
as a matter of fact, I think we graduated on a Thursday or Friday, and then the following Saturday, I was getting married.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a big weekend for you.
Oh, yeah. What'd you do the last 7 days?
Let me tell you.
Let me tell you. And I remember I lost my job at 7-Eleven. And from there, I was looking for work because I was making $2.85 an hour at HEB. And I would, if somebody didn't show up, I'd tell them, hey, call me, I'll work their shift. I said, okay, that's fine. So that's what I did. And in the meantime, then one day I came across this Indian man, Philip Thomas, and he was selling A.O. Williams Insurance. And we hit it off. He's like, man, you're a great kid. And why don't you come over here and get your license? And I was like, get my license for what? He said, well, I want you to get your license to sell life and health insurance. And then you'll learn about investments. And that's where I started selling insurance there. And I remember I got my Series 7 license. I was an 18-year-old kid, and had no college, no nothing. I didn't know what, and I passed the test. And they're like, man, there's people that went to college, got their master's, and they couldn't pass that test. I said, I don't know what that means, but I got it. So that's what I did. And one day I was at Lada's Bakery. I think it was Lada's Bakery or La Reineta Bakery. And I met this gentleman, Jerry. And Jerry had a bill collecting company in San Benito. And we met in line. Hey, how you doing? And started talking. And he says, you ever thought of being a bill collector? And I was like, what's a bill collector? I didn't know what that was. He says, man, you got the personality for it. I said, I don't know. And he says, I'll pay you. So how much? He said, I'll pay you $140 a week. Plus a commission on all the money you bring in, you get a commission. I was like, man, $140 a week. I was like, wow. You know what? Yeah, I'm interested. I'd be making more money there than I was at HEB. And so I went to go work and be a bill collector. And I was making like $350 a week. And man, for us, I was like, oh my God, $350 a week plus HEB. And I was selling insurance, life insurance on the side. That was awesome.
I remember you told me that when you were at HEB, they offered you like a higher position there.
When I turned 19, a position came open to be an assistant service manager in the front. And I was a cashier, and I worked in the meat department. And I worked in the produce department, and over here where they sold all the general merchandise, GM department. And so, you know, the general, no, not the general, the store director, he liked me a lot. And he says, hey, there's a position opening up. I want to give you the position if you're interested. I was like, man, yeah. And position was $28,000 a year. And with overtime, I could make $36,000 a year. And I was like, man, that's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. But all those jobs that I had, I always wanted to have my own business, always. And I used to watch the show. When I used to get home, everybody was asleep, and I'd watch How to Buy Real Estate for Nothing Down. And I was like, man, I wonder if it's a scam. And Carlton Sheets was the guy's name. And I bought the program. It was like, I don't know, like $99, which was, you know, like, man,
a lot of
money. Mm-hmm. And I told your mom, I said, man, I really want to buy this. She said, man, it's a lot of money. I said, I know, but I really want. She said, okay. So I bought it. I got the program. It was tapes, you know, cassette tapes, and a book. And I started reading. And I was like, man, I really want to do this. And then first step was to look at newspaper ads. And I used to go to the local store there and in Harlingen, and they had the Monitor, which is McAllen paper, Valley Morning Star, and the Brownsville Herald. And one day I bought the McAllen Monitor, and it was 10 apartment units for sale, $500 down, owner finance. And that was like, man, this works. This will work.
What's owner finance for those people who don't know?
Where you'd have to go to the bank and qualify for a loan. The person that's selling it finances it for you.
And how does that work? They just give you like certain
they say, yeah, he said, here's your down payment. It was $500. And I think I bought them for like $100,000. And it's $500 down. And I'd make payments of, I don't know, like $700-800 a month. Mm-hmm. And plus taxes and insurance.
And how much were you collecting?
Well, I came over and I met Burl Mullins. And Dell and I, your mom and I came over. And I was like, man, I hope the car makes it. And from Harlingen to McAllen. And we made it. And got over here. We wanted to go see him. And Burl, he's like, I'm not going to sell them to anybody. I'm going to sell them to you. And in one of the strategies that I read was if you have to put money down, don't make a payment. When you're talking about apartments, don't make a payment for 90 days. And I was like, okay. So I found out how much he was renting them for. It was $225 an apartment. For the one bedrooms, there was 8 one bedrooms, and then the 2 bedrooms were $250 a month. And I remember 8 apartments were full. And I said, all right, sir, I'll pay you your price, and I'll give you the $500 down, but I don't want to make a payment for 90 days. And he's like, all right. It's fine. Okay. So the way we set up the closing is he gave me the first month's rent that he collected because we strategically closed, okay, like I think the second or the third because he was collecting the rents on the first. So you'd have to give me a pro rata share, which was like 28 days. And he knew what I was doing because he was a smart guy. And he's like, yeah, let's do that. So I remember I went to the title company and I had $500. And I went with cash. They're like, no, we don't take cash. It has to be a check. And I didn't have a checking account. They said, well, I don't have a checking account. And it's like, can you go get a money order? I was like, yeah. Yeah, I was just a kid. I didn't know. I was a 19-year-old kid. So I remember we went to the local post office and we got a $500
MoneyGram.
money order. And
Money
so
order, yeah.
we I went back to the title company, and the ladies were like, "Oh my God, this kid!" It's just like
Poor kid.
This poor kid. Does he know what he's doing? And I didn't know what I was doing, but they didn't know that.
That's how you learn.
That's how I learned.
Right.
And so Burl walked in with a check. I think it was like because he gave me the deposits. It was $800. It was $100 deposits. It was 8 of them. That's 800 plus the rents, and it was. Like 225 times 8, so whatever it came out. So anyway, I walked away with money in my pocket. I gave a check for $500 and walked out with I don't know like $2,200. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, this program works. It really works.
And you never made a payment after that.
And yeah,
You just took it.
I just took it, and so I didn't make payments for the next 2 months.
And you're just collecting all that money?
Just collecting the rents.
So then with that money, what did you do?
Well, now, we moved here down the street, Violet, right on 11th Street, 11th and Violet, of all numbers, 11.
Yeah.
And so we get there, and we have no furniture. We have nothing. We just had his crib, our bed, and an ironing board. Mm-hmm. And the ironing board was our dining table. We put Josh on the high chair on one end, and Mom would cook, and we would eat on either side of the iron, and we were happy, no problem. About a month and a half later, we got a table, and then Burl had this friend he had this old couch that was purple, orange, rust color, and he's like, "Look, it's a really good couch, but the color's a little different." I was like, man, we'll take it. That's all right. So we got the couch. It was the ugliest thing in the world for people that saw it. But for us, man, we had a couch. That was great because I was saving money because I wanted to buy more apartments. And furniture was not a priority.
How many apartments did you own? Like at the top of your game?
323 apartments.
Wow.
That you own.
By myself.
And how old were you?
By myself. Your mother died.
How old were you?
22.
So you were 22. Wow. So
Wow.
I'm 32 with your apartments.
22, 23.
Did you ever experience squatters?
We had some squatters.
How did you get them out?
Yeah, how'd you get them out?
A lot of times, the best way to get out a squatter is you give them money so they can leave. But your mother and I, they were families, and we couldn't get them out. So we just left them there. And, we tell them, look, whenever you have money, just pay. Mm-hmm. And they were like, and that was okay. God blessed us, more than can imagine.
How much money were you making owning? How much did you say? 200? Over 200 apartments?
323 apartments. I had 323 apartments, about 50 mobile homes. What else did I have? I had like 3 or 4 trailers, not mobile homes, but trailers.
Would you buy all of those the same, like you bought the apartments?
Well, when I bought properties, they came with it.
Oh, so you were also buying?
I bought probably $15 million worth of real estate with not a nickel out of my pocket.
Was Burl helping you with all that, or were
Burl helped me a lot, yeah, and I give credit to Burl, and I bought a lot of his apartments that he said, hey, I don't want any more, take them. And then I went out and bought a bunch on my own.
How did you know what a good property was and what a good property wasn't?
There was some formulas that I learned in the book, but then when I got with Burl, he told me, son, this is how you buy real estate, because he had done this like 20 years before I did, bought a program, and because he used to work at IG, he used to sell milk for a living, got out and started buying real estate, and so for me, I went out and I did I started buying more and more apartments, but he told me this is the formula. And if you use this formula, you'll never lose. And I said, okay. And I'll tell you what the formula is. And listen, it worked for me. And I was a kid. I was a dumb kid. I didn't know anything. I was going to say something, but I bet I can't say it. Shinola. Okay. So, but it's, you take your monthly rents, okay? Let's say, for example, you have 10 apartments and you're collecting $250 a month. So you take 10 apartments times 250 is $2,500 a month. Times 12 is $30,000 a year. Times 5 is $150,000.
Why times 5?
Well, because now you're getting a 20% return, a 20% return on your investment, 15%, 20%. That's why. So you take that, you multiply it times 5. If you do it, you multiply it times 4, and that's a better deal. The most you'll ever want to pay is times 6.
That's
You never
6
want
years.
anything over 6. It's not a good deal.
You're not making money.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. You get to a couple of vacancies, and you have insurance, taxes. It's tough.
So you think that formula could still work?
It still works today.
You still do business
It
like that
works.
today?
I work with another gentleman of mine, a friend of mine, and this was about maybe 10 years ago, and he was telling me the net operating NOI and doing all this formula. Those guys from the Northeast. They use all these
Big words.
and all these fancy words, and it's a formula that he does. And it takes maybe 4 or 5 minutes to kind of figure it out. It took me about 30 seconds in my head. I said, that's what you should pay for it. He's like, what? Nah, come on. I said, no, that's how you do it. You do it like this. And he's like, there's no way, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, he did his formula, and we were off by like $2,000 or $3,000. We're talking about in the millions of dollars of
Of real estate.
yeah, just a few dollars off. He's like, man, how did you do that? I said, well, and I told him a formula. He's like, man, he says, because he's got a PhD in economics. He's a doctor. He's a brilliant man, owns tens of thousands of apartments. So it still works.
So common sense and experience
Common sense and experience.
can go just as long as or far as someone with a PhD.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, what's the most money you've ever made in a year when you were in your 20s? Be honest.
Probably maybe about in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, probably about 400,000.
Wow.
Wow.
And
Not
you
bad for a teen dad.
I
Yeah.
know.
Not bad for a teen dad.
And you graduated 85.
Graduated in 85.
So within a span of 5 to 10 years, you're
I remember-
making 400,000.
Yeah, I remember telling your mom, I said, honey, I promise you, we will be millionaires in 3 years. And she's like, okay, Rick.
Did you ever hit that million?
Yes.
You actually showed me the paper, like
Yeah.
what your net worth
My
was.
net worth was.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, I had a little over $3 million net worth.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how old were you again?
22.
22.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got some catching up to do, you guys.
And, I'm not bragging about myself. I'm just telling you what it was, the way it was. I mean, I had that drive. I still have that drive.
Really
One
quick.
thing my mom and dad always said, que no le tengo miedo a nada. Tú, Ricardo, no tienes miedo a nada. You're not afraid of anything. Any challenge that comes my way, phew, I see a challenge coming my way, I run to the challenge. Because the quicker you take on the challenge, the quicker you get over the challenge. And you can't be afraid. Now, you're afraid, but you have to mentally be strong and say, you know what, I will overcome this. And you got to have that drive.
And so with that, what kind of hardships have you experienced? Like after that peak, what are some
I
things-
lost everything when the savings and loans when they went under. Most of my properties were with savings and loans, and I lost everything. You know, I mean, we were living on like $50,000 a year, and it got so bad that you guys were little. You were just a baby. No, and Isaiah was a baby, and Isaiah was sick. That's always sick, and we had no health insurance because I made more than $1,000 a month, so I had to pay for everything. He didn't qualify for anything.
Yeah, so you paid out of pocket.
I'd pay out of pocket. So $50,000 a year seems like a lot of money, but when you have a child that's sick, it's not a lot of money. And so your mother and I, we were so desperate, we were like broke, that I remember talking to my deacon, and I said, man, we're like desperate, we're broke. And he says, well, if you want, I could talk to the church and we can pay you guys to clean the church. And I said, yeah, great, let's do it. So your mother and I would go, I don't know if you guys remember, we would go to the church.
Which one?
Trinity Baptist.
Trinity Baptist?
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys were little, and we would go, and I remember Nicole used to get the broom. The broom was, 30 feet tall compared to her. And she'd try to sweep and all. And of course, we were like just overwhelmed with joy because we had a job. And I remember they would pay us like $1,400 a month. And our bills were like $1,300 a month.
Damn.
So we were like, man, we were awesome. And we had an extra $100 that we could use to buy the medicine for Isaiah, because most of my money was going for Isaiah's medical bills. And so that's it.
So you lost everything, and then you were able to come back slowly but surely.
Slowly but surely. I knew how to make money. That's one thing I have a talent. I know how to make money.
One thing you said is that whenever, there's a challenge or an obstacle, there's people that go for it and, they lose, but they make it out on the other side okay. But, like, for me, I don't know about, Nicole or Josh, like, I see you and I'm like, damn, my dad's accomplished so much. It's like I do want to live up to you, but I know we're the same, but we're not the same. Like, okay, I went to school, right? I got a degree. I have a job right now. But I don't want to do that job forever. Now I have a family, I have a mortgage, and it's like, oh, man, do I really take that leap of faith? And what if I don't make it out on the other side? Like, it's really, really scary to go from a job where, you get a consistent salary, and that's nice, but that's not what I want for me. So what would you say to not only me, but other people out there?
You have to weigh your options. And, I would say I didn't know any better. I was a 19-year-old kid. I just knew I didn't want to work at H-E-B. I remember when I told my mom and dad, and when your mom told her parents, said, "Oh, we're going to move to McAllen." Well, what about your job? We're going to leave the job. What, are you crazy? You got a retirement. You got health insurance. You got a good job. It's a stable company. It's H-E-B, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. They thought I was nuts. They thought we were nuts. Maybe your mom thought I was nuts, but your mom always said, I have your back. I believe in you, and let's go forward. Always. And that's why I spoiled the heck out of her the day she died.
I was going to say, so let's fast forward. So somehow you went from a businessman to moving us to the heart of the valley, Donna, Texas.
Donna, Texas.
Sorry,
Oh, my
Westico.
God. Well,
and then you got into politics.
that's your mother's fault.
Moving to Donna?
No. We moved to Donna because we were
Isaiah.
living here in McAllen, and Isaiah, she was going to Gonzales Elementary. And, man, horrible experience. He went to the hospital twice. They had a child that would get away and would bite the kids. And one time, he almost bit through your brother's arm.
Jesus.
And he bit him in his back and wouldn't let go. And said, man, we're not going to. Then the principal was like, well, we can't have normal kids around your kids. We just can't have them. It's like,
Wow.
Josh, CPI training.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
So, or like, okay, we didn't think Isaiah, just because he had Down syndrome, that he was, that there was something wrong with him, where he couldn't be around what she would refer to as normal kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, well, then we're like, your mom said, we got to find another school district. I said, all right. So we went to Los Fresnos, La Feria, and Donna. And we loved the special ed program in Donna. Mr. Morley was the head of the special ed. Great guy. So we found a house there. We bought it for $75,000.
Wow.
And now, tell people how big the house is.
It was over 5,000 square feet
5,000 square feet
on 2 acres.
on 2 acres in the city.
Yeah.
Right? For how
Wow.
much again?
75,000.
Yeah. We'll
Wow.
get into more stories about that house
So I
later podcast.
I
Yeah.
another
used I applied my knowledge, and the guy wanted, like $5,000 down. I said, look, I'll give you $1,000 down, no payment for 90 days. Like, no, I can't do that. Blah blah blah.
He's like, I know what you're doing.
Yeah. But his book says I have 90 days.
So we agreed $1,000 down, and no payment for 2 months,
Wow.
and the payment was $750 a month.
Did you just have the ironing board and that?
No, but
Family couch?
I had 4 kids, and we had a house full of everything. Yeah,
They
We
left
had
the
2
furniture.
dogs. All the furniture. Yeah.
All right.
They threw in that couch. There was like
That
long.
green.
Yeah, the long green couch.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah, they
remember.
left that there. They didn't want to take it. Like, man, I
How?
will give it to you. Like, all right.
What year was the house built? In the 20s?
1921, 22.
Wow.
Wow, that's almost. I think Grandpa's older. No, it was
Grandpa
like your dad?
is born 25.
25. Wow. That house is still there today. You renovated it a few times, right?
Mhm.
All right. So you got into politics, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Whenever you got into politics, you're not from the city. You don't know anyone. How do you even where do you go to meet people and talk to people?
Well, I'll tell you the story. When we moved there, about 2 years later, they were going to pave the street. And so they took up all the asphalt. And so for like a year and a half, we had a dirt road.
damn.
And I remember, man, I used to complain. I said, man, there's no monkey bars. There's no swings. We went to the swimming pool that was horrible. And I was, man, this city really sucks. And your mom was like, don't be complaining. Do something about it. Why don't you run for office? Like, I'm not a politician. Yeah, but you're smart. You can, I'm like, no, what are you talking about? The neighbor across the street, Eloy Infante, was on the school board. He was running for school board. And, we see each other. Hey, how you doing, neighbor? Blah, blah, blah. Just cordial. And one day, we're out there, and I go across the street. Hey, how you doing? And we started talking. And he asked me, well, what do you do? I said, well, I have a mortgage business. I do mortgages for a living. I have 8 different locations in the valley, and that's what I do. I do mortgages. I said, hey, man, why don't you run for the city? And I was like, man, you sound like my wife. I said, what? He said, yeah. I said, well, I don't know anybody. He said, well, you know what? I got a buddy of mine. This is now in 99. He wants to run, but he needs a running mate. So, okay. So I meet this guy, Eloy Avila. And,
Oh wow.
I mean,
Oh,
Eloy,
wow.
met Eloy
Wow.
Avila at Eloy Infante's house. And so, and of course, Eloy today is still my brother.
Yeah, he's like our uncle.
Yeah. And I talked to him just about 12 o'clock today, or texted him, excuse me, on your stuff. And so, I worked hard. I mean, I went and knocked on doors, and
What'd you run for?
I ran for commissioner
And how long are the terms for commissioner?
3 years.
3 years.
What does a commissioner do?
Well, the council is made up of the mayor and 4 commissioners, and the commissioners basically they refer to you as city fathers. You go and you're in charge of the city budget, water, sewer, police, fire, public works, all the public parks and things of that nature. It's everything that's associated with the city. That's what we did. Make sure your garbage got picked up on time, the brush got picked up on time. We balanced budgets. We had a surplus. All these different things. You cut taxes. All those things that you don't see that often. And so I got involved. And the first thing I asked for is, well, do y'all have an audit? And they're like, what? Do y'all
What's
have an
an
audit?
audit?
They're like, an audit? Yeah, I want to see the finances of the
Books,
city. And
yeah.
they're like, man, we haven't had an audit in 5 years. It's like, what? How do you run a city? Like,
Is that normal?
no, you're supposed to do it annually.
Okay.
And so I got involved. I ran. I won. I beat the most popular commissioner at the time.
Which was Eloy.
No, it was a lady, Beatriz Farias. I beat her by like 135 votes or something.
Whenever you run, how much? I know you need to win by a certain number, right?
Well, if there's more than one candidate, you have to get over 50%. But here it was just one-on-one.
Oh, okay.
So, I got over 50% of the vote.
Were you really shocked when you won?
Beyond shocked. Everybody in Donna was beyond shocked because they're like, first of all, you don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't party, you're not a womanizer, you're not this, you're not all these things that you have to be.
You're not
when
from.
in politics.
You're not from there.
And I'm not
Yeah,
from
you're not-
Donna.
You
so
Yeah.
don't
they
play
knew
football
me.
for the Redskins.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, exactly. Everybody was shocked. And then a year later, I ran for mayor and I won.
Who'd you run against?
Robert Lugo and Lonnie Flores. Lonnie Flores was the city mayor, and I beat him.
Wow.
Okay.
And everybody was shocked. I wasn't, because by that time, I said, you know what, I can do this.
How much did you need to put down? Like, how much money did you need in order to run a successful campaign?
At that time, you needed about maybe $10,000. And
Wow.
This was in the early 2000s,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So you need about 10 grand. I remember I went to David Starr. I said, David, I'm running for mayor, for commissioner. He's like, all right, how much money do you need? And I was like, man, I need about 10 grand. Sure, no problem. So he called a couple of his buddies, and I put in, I don't know, maybe like $1,000 myself, and ran and won. Then I ran for mayor. I said, I need about 15,000. And I remember he wrote me a check for $15,000. There you go, son. I said, wow, all right.
And how long? What's the term for mayor?
3 years.
3 years as well. All right. Now, what are the perks of being a mayor?
You know, it all depends on the individual. I used it, me personally, to network and expand my mortgage business and do other businesses with.
And you could
I
do
never
that?
did anything. Yes, I could do that. I never did anything in the city. I never did any business in the city. Never, nothing, because the appearance doesn't look right.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, people in the valley are used to people taking a bribe, $500, $1,000, and by this time, you know, I was making about $150,000 a year, and I was like, let me see, why would I go and take a $500 bribe and lose $150,000? It makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so I couldn't be bought, and so a lot of people were upset because, hey, man, this guy.
He can't be bought.
Yeah, and the mayor gets a $10,000 a year budget, so you can go on trips and you can go this, that, and the other. Every year, I never took one nickel from that fund. I paid for all my trips and all my meals. And when engineers or other people wanted to take the council to go eat, guess who would pay for everything? I would pay for everything.
Out of your own pocket.
No. I said, no, I'm buying you lunch. I'm buying you dinner.
Mm-hmm.
What? No, that's not the way it works. When I'm around, that's the way it works.
And then what happened with those 10,000 that you didn't use?
It just go back into the general fund.
Oh, into the general fund, and then they could.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to ask, you always see in TV, every time there's a TV show with the marinade, he's like rich and he has like this big mansion. How much do mayors actually make?
In the valley, like in Donna, we make $50 a year.
50?
Yeah, 50,
Five
50. Yeah. McAllen, I think they pay Javier maybe like $25,000 a year. Everybody else is like maybe $5,000.
But it just depends on like the size of the
yeah,
city,
like San
right?
Antonio, I think they pay their mayor like $200,000 a year. Houston is like $250 or something. But down here in Donna, he had no money.
All right, now in Donna, how do you go out and get businesses and like attract businesses to Donna?
Through my business connections that I had made through David Starr, I get to meet a lot of different people. And I was a Republican, so I got invited to a lot of Republican meetings. And so that's how I networked. And I'm like, hey, man, I want to bring businesses here. I want to do this. I want to do that. Like the bridge, the international bridge from Donna to Rio Bravo.
Wait, you brought that?
Yes, sir.
You brought that?
I brought that. For 50 years, they've been trying to build it, and they couldn't get it done. And along comes this kid from Harlingen, and we got it done in 6 years.
I remember.
We got it done in 4 years. My first 4 years, and just got it done.
Did you get a lot of backlash?
Only from other people that have, the city of McAllen, they had their bridge, that's what was bridge. City of FAR, because they didn't want any competition. And Sam Sparks, the owner of the Progresso Bridge. They had everybody in Washington and in Mexico City blocking our project because you get a pie, you're dividing up more and more and more. They're like, no, we want to keep this big chunk of the pie. And they're like, no. And they tell me, you'll never get it done. I said, okay. And
So
we got it.
what did it take? Like, who did you meet with in order to get two countries to agree to, build a bridge?
Well, I
connecting the two?
tell you what the secret was. The secret sauce to getting that international bridge. I had an idea. I said, look, we have no money. We needed about $500,000 to get things rolling. We had no money. But my good friend Ed Garza, the mayor of San Antonio, who used to work for David Starr, he's the one who I went to him. I went to David. I said, David, if we can get City San Antonio to say that they're going to use our bridge and they're going to partner up with us, not give us money, but just going to partner up with us, I think that's going to make a difference. And he's like, you know what? I'll talk to Ed. I said, all right. So Ed Garza flew down. And I'm running for mayor at the time, the first time, against Lonnie and them. And I said, I'm going to surprise everybody because nobody believed it. And so Ed Garza comes down, and we have a press conference in Wessico because we didn't have anything done. We have a press conference in Wessico, and the press conference is the mayor of San Antonio wants to make an announcement. And the announcement was, I'm the mayor of San Antonio, and we support the city of Donna, and we want to partner up with them. And everybody's like, what? San Antonio? Boom. City of Mercedes came up and says, we want to be your partner. City of Wessico, the county, McAllen. They all want to be our partner now because San Antonio's backing us up. That was the secret.
Oh, what year was that?
2001.
Oh, wow.
How much was the bridge? Like, how much did it cost?
$132 million.
And
The total was $150 million.
and who funded that? Or
The
where do you get?
feds.
So the federal government
We
funded that.
got the feds to fund it all.
How did you?
We got them.
You're like, continue, right?
Yeah.
Well, the city of San Antonio, after they made the announcement, Ed went to Washington with us. We met with K. Bailey Hutchison. Well, first K. Bailey Hutchison and Phil Graham, and then Congressman Rubén Hinojosa, Solomon Ortiz, and the congressman from Henry Bonilla from San Antonio. So Ed Garza, the mayor of San Antonio, is walking the halls of the Capitol with the mayor of Donna, talking about we need help for this project. And they're like, absolutely, Mayor. Oh, and you're from what? Donna? Yeah. We're able to get it done. Oh. I remember we went into Eloy tells a story. One day you can ask Eloy. We were in Washington and we went to the agency, the immigration and all these other people. All these agencies are there and they're in charge of international bridges. And so we go to them and they're like, okay. And it's staff. And they're like, well, we have a list of all the bridges and you guys are not even on the radar for the next 20 years. We don't have you guys down on the radar.
Wow.
And Eloy's like, Rick, what the hell's going on? I thought you said I said, just, okay, no problem. So we go back like a month later and they call us in. Hey, can y'all come back? Sure, okay. So we go back a month later and we meet with the same people. Now the top brass is there. And they're like, listen, can you guys please stop making phone calls? Because we get a lot of phone calls. We moved you guys. You guys are now second in line behind McAllen.
Oh, wow.
Or third. Laredo, McAllen, now Donna. Please have them stop calling. Who? The senators are calling and the congressmen are calling. Everybody's calling. It's not just from Texas, from all over the country.
Wow.
So can you please stop? Just stop. Okay. And they moved us up to the front of the line. And that's when Farr and McAllen, they're like, whoa, what the heck? And then Sam Sparks, who owned the Progresso Bridge, they started getting their people. And K. Bailey Hutchison the senator at the time, told me, Mayor, Sam is a personal friend of mine, and I'm going to oppose your bridge.
Well, at least he gave you that
I
heads
said,
up.
okay,
Yeah.
no problem. And I understand. And listen, I understand, not a problem. We had Senator Cornyn on our side. Phil Graham had retired, and Senator Cornyn had ran. And when Senator Cornyn made the announcement, I was asked to introduce him to the state of Texas in Dallas. And I was just a rookie. I was just a kid. I was 33 years old, 34-year-old kid.
That's my age.
Yeah. And I'm introducing the senator to the state of Texas about, they're at the TML conference. And I did. And we became friends. We're still friends. Sandy, his wife, was friends with Mom. And
What was your vision for the bridge? Like, why even bring a bridge to Donna, of all places?
because you have Matamoros and you have Reynosa. And the maquilas at that time they were exploding. And Reynosa, there wasn't enough space. It was growing and growing and growing. And what people don't know is that the Reynosa Bridge is between Rio Bravo and Reynosa, kind of like in the Alamo area, right in that area. And we had a lot of empty land. And I knew if we can cross here, we can build a lot of maquilas on the Mexican side and on the American side. And so we're able to get the bridge done.
So being in a border town, I know there's like a lot of talk with like immigration and things like that. Would you get a report of like how many people would be crossing whenever y'all built the bridge?
Yeah, when we built the bridge, there wasn't too much illegal immigrants crossing. A few times we had to shut the bridge down because there was a large contingency of Venezuelans and Cubans that were camped out on the other side. And what we did, because we have friends in Mexico, we offered to drive them to Reynosa to cross in Hidalgo.
Oh, wow.
And so what we did is a few of us pitched in some money, and we said, look, we'll give you guys some food, and you guys can cross over here in Reynosa. And they were like, oh, man, yeah, thank you. So we hired people. We had a little shuttle buses or whatever, and we gave them food and gave them a little bit of money, and they came across in Reynosa.
Wow.
And so that was somebody else's problem now, wasn't us.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. And it wasn't a lot of money. It was like, I don't know, like $1,000 or something.
With being mayor, I know that Nicole and I talked about this. Sometimes you would do a few ride-alongs, right?
Yeah, for
Can
the
you
police
tell us
officers.
a few interesting stories?
The most interesting story, I'm with a buddy of mine, Danny Walden, and we get a phone call that one of the bars there's a fight going on, a disturbance. So we show up, and it's him, and he's a gringo. And he walks in the bar, and it's me and him. And
The police officer.
a police officer.
Yeah.
And so he walks in, and they're all, no, and he's like, pinche gringo, this, that, and the other. They don't care. He's a white guy. And the wife is there, chewing out the husband, because he's there talking to one of the barmaids. And so they're having issues. And so he goes over there and says, hey, y'all need to come outside, blah, blah, blah. And so now the guy walks out, and he's drunk. He's inebriated too. I mean, just horribly. And he wants to fight with the officer. So the officer gets him, puts him down. Then the wife attacks the officer. And you're hurting my husband, my esposo, blah, blah, blah. And so the fight is on. And so now I'm trying to get the wife off the officer. And then the two of his buddies come out. And back then, I mean, he's fighting, trying to call. And so he calls for backup. And now I'm going to have to hold off two guys. I have an asp. It's a metal thing, an asp. I tell him, stand back. And
You got the mayor down his.
yeah,
Hey, back up.
yeah, back up. The wife is on the officer, pulling his hair, scratching his face. And the guy's fighting him. And so you hear the sirens coming. And you're like, man, it's taking forever. It only took like maybe a minute. But when you're in that situation, that minute seems like an hour. And so they get there and, gets under control quick. The sheriff's department shows up and blah, blah, blah. So now we have 7 or 8 police cars there. And I remember the officer saying, "Man, thank you, because there's no way I would have been able to take 4 people, if I was alone. I just, no way." And the other officer was working an accident somewhere across town, and there just happened to be one that was floating and showed up quick. But that was that. And of course, a few chases, 2 chases, and some kids just,
Racing or something.
yeah, stuff like that.
What was the most violent crime that happened in Donna whenever you were mayor?
During Hurricane Katrina, there was a lot of displacement people from New Orleans. And so they were putting them all over the state of Texas. And we got one guy. We had 2 families came to Donna. And so they were staying in Donna. Then the 2 families left, but one of the sons stayed behind. And everybody knew him, because he stood out like a sore thumb. And there was an elderly man who'd gotten paid on the 1st. We got his little Social Security check. He was at HEB, cashed his check. The guy was there, saw an old man. So old man's walking, and he used to walk through the alley because he lived in an apartment. It was close. It was close for him to go through the alley. So the guy jumps the old man, stabs him to death, and
Oh my gosh.
the police officer shows up, and the guy is covered in blood, and he sees it, and the guy starts running, and he back up, starts chasing him, and they get him, and he had thrown the knife, and he said, "Why are you running? Why are you covered with blood?" And it's like, this, that, the other, and then we get a phone call. "Hey, there's a man bleeding over here," and everybody knew the man. He was an old man. He was probably about 4'8", probably about 85 years old, just an elderly man, sweet old man. I knew him. Everybody knew him. And he stabbed the man, killed him, and he got the death penalty, and he died a few years ago.
Oh,
Damn.
wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, and I got to go to the jail and I told him, "You're going to get the chair." And he was like, "Hey, you're going to do that, blah, blah, blah," instead of the other. You got the chair.
Wow.
Yeah.
How big was the guy?
Probably about 6'3".
Yeah.
The young guy, probably in his mid to late 20s.
What's something that you did for the city or brought that you're
Proud of?
very proud of?
Several things. Besides the International Bridge, I brought in a lot of stores. A lot of the stores that you see now. Brought a lot of development. Made friends with Rick Perry, the governor at the time. We're able to get 2 housing developments in Donna. That Donna, in the history of Donna, they've never received any funding. And we got funding for a new water plant and for the infrastructure. And that's what helped Donna grow today, because we had to put that infrastructure in. And we got, I don't know, like a 80% grant or something, which is unheard of. But Rick Perry was a friend, and is still a friend. When he ran for president, he called me up, says, "Hey, I'm going to be running for president. I need your help." I said, "Sure, whatever you need, absolutely." And so your mother and I drive up to Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa, January, okay? And it's 0 degrees. Now, we're from the valley, okay? We left here, it was like, 75 degrees. Get up there, it's 0 degrees. We knew he was going to lose. He was like in 5th place or 6th place. But that didn't matter to us because he was a friend. And when I needed him, he was there for me. And I was going to be there for him. I don't care, win or lose, made no difference to me. So we drove, and the Aspen, the little Dodge Aspen, the big Dodge Aspen, drove all the way up there. We campaigned for him. We went out there, canvassed. We did the everything that needed to be done for the campaigning. Your mother and I did. We ate sandwiches with Doritos on the road. And we had, of course, Diet Sunkist. And your mother, the passenger, making the Doritos with the cheese and the ham and cheese sandwiches with a little bit of mayonnaise. Of course, she had mustard. And we went up there, and we got the news. He came in 5th place. He wasn't 6th. He came in 5th place. So I figured that because of me and your mom, you got an extra few votes. But he came in 5th place. We knew he was going to lose. And him and Anita came over to us and said, we want to thank you. You guys drove all the way up here from the valley, all the way to Des Moines, Iowa. A 1.5-day drive, 2-day drive. Horrible conditions. But you were here. He said, we'll never forget that. And when Mom died, Rick Perry called me and Anita called me. And I still have their cards that they sent. And Anita was like in shock. She's like, I can't believe Della was 49 years old. How could she die, Rick? How? I said, yeah, I know. I'm asking the same thing. So we made friends, lifelong friends.
That's crazy. Going from a household where your dad made, $400 a month to, going on a presidential campaign with Rick Perry. It just goes to show you that in life, you could just...
Hey, this is America, the greatest country in the world. Little kid.
Real quick. Did you ever meet Trump?
Never met Trump. I got invited to go meet him in Edinburgh. But we would have to stand for like 4 to 6 hours. And I know Isaiah couldn't stand for 4 to 6 hours.
Yeah.
I knew it. And, I called a buddy of mine, said, listen, talk to the Secret Service, see, we can wait inside. We could sit down because Isaiah can't stand. They're like, no, for security purposes, they can't. So then I can't go. Mm-hmm. I never met him.
What's something you would have asked him? Because at that time he was president. So
is that your real hair?
He is now, obviously. But
Is that your real hair?
at that time, what's something you would have asked him?
I probably would have asked him to make it a point to concentrate on mental health, disabilities, especially because of Isaiah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, to make it one of his cornerstones of his campaign is, we need to work with special needs individuals, whether it be children or adults. That's what I would have not asked him. I would have said, can you please do this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very important.
We'll leave off on that note, but before we leave, Josh, Nicole, do y'all have anything you want to say or
ask away?
Going back to what you've done for the city, I remember when I was in high school, you told me, and I think you were a commissioner at the time, and you went on a ride-along, and you told me that they got some sort of call, and the police officer was like looking for someone or looking for something, and he took out his flashlight, and he had like a little like paper clip, and he was using it to press the button on the flashlight to make it work.
Yeah.
And it's little things like that make a difference. And I never forgot that story.
And after I saw that, I made it a point when I became mayor that we would take care of our police officers and our fire department. And that's what we did. You could ask any of my my police department guys, and they'll tell you, all new equipment, all new training, all new cars, everything. We revamped everything for them. We got vests. I donated some vests personally over the years. So you talk to my police department, they're like, man, we love Mayor Morales because he did a lot for us.
Before we conclude our podcast, do you have any new business adventures?
Noah's Ark Pet Connect. That's coming up. That's going to be a big international deal. We're working on that, and our next podcast we'll bring it up, and working on that, and working on a few other interesting things. Listen, I'm going to work to the day I die, because the day I stop working is the day I die. And I slowed down a lot. After Mom passed away, I slowed down. I only worked like 50 hours a week, and so.
Future podcasts, expect more talks about politics. We'll get into our paranormal stories that we've all shared together and separately, and more about Noah's Ark Pet Connect.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.